I'll start recording, and thank you very much for coming. I'll try to be on time because there is the data herald following this meeting. So just to let you know, we are talking here at the Data Science Incubator about this topic of pull requests. We covered the kind of basic situation where things just go well in the previous meeting, and that issue, pull request helpers, has now a few additional comments to answer. Basically, here I answer the question that CJ asked, and I left kind of open a question that Claire asked. CJ asked basically to compare the workflows using pull requests versus a workflow where the contributors push to the mainstream repo. But I'm not going to kind of discuss that now because I want to kind of focus on the topic of today. And the topic of today actually answers the question of what is kind of along the lines of the question that Claire asked. Her question was basically, how do you go about working with two consecutive PRs when they are kind of interdependent? I'm not going to cover that topic today. I'm going to cover it next week. But it is, broadly speaking, in the topic of kind of, PR hell. So how to kind of get out of situations that are not the ideal one. So more realistic scenarios. So today, particularly, I'm going to talk about this situation where you need to synchronize your pull request with the source repository. So imagine where, we are a contributor and we have submitted a pull request, and that pull request has some merge conflicts that need to be solved before the pull request can be merged. So that is the job of the PR helper, PR sync, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So first of all, because I'm going to be showing how to do this work with the usethis package, the first thing you would need to do is to kind of run the function library usethis. And the second thing you need to do is kind of to create all the wiring, basically, all the plumbing that you need to connect your repository, your local repository with the source repository. So how do you do that? Okay, so basically you could, create a fork first from the source repository into your user account, and then create a clone locally. You can do all of that with the function create from GitHub, which is a function from usethis as well, that takes as first argument the name of the organization and then the name of the repo with this syntax, so owner/repo. And here I'm using specifically the argument fork equals true to force the creation of that fork. That should kind of happen automatically for most of you. For me, it doesn't, because I have actually privileges to push to the demonstration repo I'm working on. So I have to be kind of explicit about that. So along the presentation, you will see kind of the US helpers, as I'm showing here. And you will also see kind of the same commands, what they could look like directly on Git. So if you were running them on the terminal. And I do this for two reasons. One, if you want to if you prefer to use terminal, then, this is kind of the best practices way of creating all this, of solving this problem of synchronizing your local branch, PR branch with the upstream repo. And also because I want to kind of show how much work it is to do this on the terminal as opposed to using the helpers. So that's totally up to you. It's very valid to do it on the terminal, as valid as it is to do it with the helpers, but it's totally up to you. In my personal opinion, is if you can use your brain for something more useful than doing repetitive tasks that are error prone, then fine. So, for example, this function create from GitHub, what it does is well, first you have to create the fork manually on GitHub if you are going to go for the kind of terminal approach, and then you can open the terminal and do git clone, and then pass the URL to the Git repository on GitHub. So here I'm, forking from an organization. So it's an org is the owner, and my fork is going to live under the user account Mauro Lepore. So the fork of this source is this one here. And then once you are locally, this function also does this other thing. So it does, for example, it adds a remote, which is basically a nickname for a URL pointing to somewhere else other than your computer. So if you want to do this on the terminal, you have to run git remote add upstream, which is the nickname for the remote repository of the source repo, and then give the URL of that repo, which of course in this example is an OR. Then you would like to kind of bring any potential change that that repo might have included in the last seconds. So you can do like a git pull. So you pull, what it does is first fetches like the metadata of that repo, and then does an automatic merge. So if we are now standing on master, then git pull upstream master, what we'll do is it is going to synchronize your local master with the upstream master, so the branch master of the source repo. And then if you want to kind of save some typing in the future, you can kind of say what is the default branch that your local branch master should track. So you can do this with this command. So you say git branch set upstream to upstream master. So if you're standing on master, the upstream of this local branch is going to be the one that you pass here on the right-hand side of the equal sign. So in this command, what it's doing is asking git to track this local master branch with this other one here that is the remote one. So with this, I demonstrate that this single command does a lot of work that you need to type a lot if you want to do it on the terminal. And all of this is very error prone. So if you miss something here, you might end up in a situation that is not ideal. So from now on, I'm going to move a little bit faster and probably not kind of stop to discuss the Git terminal approach, but it's going to be there for you to use it in your own time if you prefer to see how the PR helpers approach compares to the just plain terminal approach. So Git sitrep stands for situation report. It's a function that kind of shows you a bunch of useful information. And today I'm going to basically focus on these two end lines. This is Git situation report for what's our status when we want to create pull requests. Basically, this is showing that we have a remote address with a nickname origin that is pointing to Mauro Lepore ABC, which is our fork. And it also shows that there is a second connection to a remote address with a nickname upstream that is pointing to the repository ABC, but in the ANOR organization, which is the source repository. So now, with all that wiring done, a contributor, which is, I'm going to kind of play the role of a contributor. A contributor would initiate a pull request with, as you saw last time, with the function PR_init and the name of the PR, so say PR_init PR, and that will create a lot of wiring for us, and then we are ready to work. So imagine that the contributor writes a line here in line 3 that says a repo for demo. That is to edit the README file and add some information about what's the purpose of this demo repository. So that's the change that the contributor wants to submit in the form of a pull request. So the contributor locally would write that line, then save the file, and then run PR push. That will do a bunch of things, again, that you can do on Git if you want. And that commit will travel to GitHub and will pop up automatically. That function will pop up a URL here. So you will see an interface seeing the kind of the pull request interface, so you can submit it. In that state, everything should look green because there should be no conflict between your base, between your pull request and the base branch where you want to submit your pull request. So basically, we saw this before, that's why I'm moving a little fast. But basically, our commit lives in this branch PR of the repo ABC in my user account, in my fork. And I'm kind of proposing those changes to be merged into the master branch of the repo ABC in the ANOR organization. So I go ahead and click pull request. So far, that's nothing new. That's what we saw last time, and that's kind of a review. But now, I would like to kind of discuss the case where the PR, before the PR is merged, the maintainer adds a conflicting commit that kind of creates a conflict, right? So if that happens, and I'm going to show how that looks like in a moment, we could see that, you know, this kind of green color happy situation of the PR will change to this kind of gray color unhappy situation. So the same URL that before had no conflicts now would be looking like this. And you could read a message saying this branch has conflicts and that must be resolved before you can merge, basically. And it's kind of already showing us what's the file that has the problem. In this case, it's the README file. So locally, the contributor can then run the function PR sync, and that is the star of this presentation today. So PR sync will do a lot of stuff, which is kind of described here and also here. Basically, what it does is synchronizes, or it tries to synchronize our local branch, which is a clone of our fork of the source repository. It tries to synchronize that local branch with the source repository. So here it failed and shows an error that says merge conflict, please resolve before continuing. So this function is very handy. It's giving us an alert about what's the problem, and it also automatically pops up one of the files that has the conflict. So here we can see that the syntax is as follows. So head means, you know, the branch we are standing right now. So it is the branch associated to the PR. And remember, we wrote the line a repo for demo. And then it looks like the contributor on the master branch of the source repository wrote in the exact same line something a little different. For example, if they wrote a repository for demo. So instead of repo, repository. That is a conflict that it does not know how to solve automatically and asks us humans to solve that problem. So for example, this is one possible way of fixing that conflict. So, you know, this is line 3 of the contributor. This is line 3 of the maintainer. And this is line 3 of the contributor after solving the merge conflict. So this red section is what the conflict was looking like before, and now in green is what this commit looks like. So basically what we did is, you know, we edited the file to just keep this line, a repository for demonstration, we saved the file, and then we created a commit. So this is what our Git history could look like at this point. We are still locally, we haven't yet pushed, and we are gonna do that in a moment. So just to kind of break down what we are seeing here, the repository started before this demonstration. The repository already had a README file and this commit here. And then the contributor edited the README file that is reflected here in this commit. Then the maintainer added also an edition of the README file in the exact same line. That was a conflict, and we have just solved that conflict here. So we create what's called like a merge commit. Okay, problem solved. We are ready to push. We can run the function PR push, and that will send that, you know, solving commit back to GitHub. Again, you could do this if you want on the terminal. So the pull request, remember, it was the last time we saw this URL, it was gray, and it was saying, hey, you have a conflict here. Now we are back to green. It says this branch has no conflicts with the base branch, so we are good to go. So the maintainer could then come here and click the green button to merge this PR into the upstream master. So in particular, I like doing squash and merge because that kind of cleans the messy history of conflicting commits. And instead of having, you know, a bunch of commits representing one PR, we have just a single nice commit. So when that's done, then, you know, as contributors locally have nothing else to do with this PR, so we can just run the function PR_finish, and that will switch us back to master. Then it will pull the changes that were merged into the source repo from upstream master. So we are going to be kind of synchronizing our master branch with the upstream master, with the source repo, and then it's going to delete the PR branch because we no longer need it. So all that kind of cleaning leaves us ready for example, submitting an XPR. So that's all I have time for and all I aim for today. So with that, I finish my presentation. I'll leave it open for questions. Do we have any question?
No, I think it's all clear. I was previously using the terminal approach, but this one now looks like much a better way. So I would try like this way. But yeah, thank you. It's this one to me like it's all clear.
Great, thank you very much. Again, and I mean, the PR helpers are an alternative that you're welcome to use or not use, totally up to you. It's working very well for me. I'm kind of trying them to learn them and then to teach them, but I'm now convinced actually they are very helpful. So let me see the chat to see what we have here. Okay, good. It looks like we are good to go. Then I'll say goodbye, and the next is gonna be the final PR help data science incubator. And then we're gonna move to other topics. Great.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Mario.
Thank you.